Thank you very much. So welcome to the County Planning Committee taking place on Tuesday the 7th of March 2023. I'm Councillor George Richardson and I am chairing today's meeting. We've done the bit about the microphones. We have a number of officers with us this morning who I'll now ask to introduce themselves, starting with Kirsty Charlton on my right.
Kirsty Charlton, Committee Services Officer.
Neil Carter, I'm the solicitor to the committee.
Stephen Reid, I'm the Planning Manager.
Graham Blakey, Principal Planning Officer.
Chris Shield, Senior Planning Officer.
Phil Harrison, Highway Development Manager.
Thank you, everyone. Just before we get on to the agenda, just a word of welcome for Isabella. Welcome back. It's lovely to see you. I know you've been ill, but I hope we'll get some sense from that direction this time. Hello, Maura. I'll get to you in a little while. Can we start with the apologies for absence, please, Kirsty?
Councillor Alan Bell.
No substitutes? Any declarations of interest from...
Chairman?
Yes, John.
I'm John Higgins, Wingate Ward. I'd like to declare that the first item is the neighbouring ward, and my ward, Wingate, is mentioned a few times within the report.
Thank you, John. That will not be any declaration of interest, but thank you for that, John. The minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of March 2023. Can we agree those minutes, please? Those are agreed. We'll move on to the applications to be determined, starting with land at Roderick Cottage Farm, Station Town, which John's just mentioned is adjacent to his ward. So it's over to you, Phil, please. Graham.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is a resubmission of an originally approved application for up to 88 dwellings in outline form, but we are looking to approve the highways accesses for this one under this application. It is located to the western edge of Station Town, itself a linear settlement to the south of Wingate, with wider links to the surrounding countryside and strategic network with the A19 you can see to the northeast of this plan. It did benefit from planning permission in 2019 for 18 dwellings, of which 15 of those were bungalows. However, this lapsed shortly after the submission of this current planning application. This application proposes a repeat of those numbers. The site itself is made up of 3 paddock of fields, with the highest point to the south and the Rodridge Cottage Farm grouping that occupies the natural ridge westward out of the village, shown here. Agricultural fields lie to the west, with a former railway line path framing the site to the northern extreme. The new home estate of Postwall Council property sits between the site and the main thoroughfare through Station Town. This provides 2 highway accesses to the site from the east. The photograph to the top left shows a view of the site from the railway line path northwards, with only the primary signs of landscaping visible in the form of hedgerows and sporadic trees in places. The original farmhouse remains to the south, as shown in the next photograph, with the redundant farm buildings adjacent, which are subject to a separate planning approval for 9 dwellings. Finally, the second of the proposed access points to an area of bungalows, which you'll see on the proposed site plan shortly, and the existing hedgerow tree planting that runs along the site boundary with the new home estate and adjacent public space, shown here. The top left photograph depicts the main entrance point to the majority of homes, together with the main access of new home estate onto the B1280, the main thoroughfare through Station Town. Here we have the indicative site layout showing bungalows to the southeast corner of the site closest to public transport options, just off screen to the southeast. Other houses can be seen across the development of varying scales, with elements of existing hedgerows within and around the site retained in part. To the western boundary is proposed a landscape tree belt, which would be over time mature to screen the development. No objections have been received from statutory internal consultees, subject to conditions where appropriate. A total of 6 objections from the public have been received. These included concerns over inappropriate development in the countryside and the loss of internal and boundary hedgerows and trees. The suitability of the proposed access point, the junction on the main road through Station Town, and increased traffic into and out of the new home estate, leading to congestion. They included the loss of wildlife, impacts upon residents from new development overlooking the existing properties and their overall loss of outlook into the countryside. Stretching of services, doctors, schools in Station Town and beyond into Wingate through the introduction of new housing into the area was also mentioned, and impacts from the new development on existing flooding and drainage problems in the immediate area was raised. Hutton Henry Parish Council also commented upon the application, raising the same highways, drainage and landscape harm issues as residents. They have also commented on the location of the proposed open space contribution from this development being linked to Station Town rather than the Black Halls electoral division. However, the securing of funds via Section 106 agreement is always secured to that geographical area, i.e. electoral division, to meet the requirements of the MPPF. It would not prejudice the ability of the Parish Council to bid for these monies in the future should the application be approved by members. So in summary, the application is considered to draw support from the policies within the National Planning Policy Framework and County Durham Plan. The site has good locational sustainability credentials and access to services and public transport, with further benefits from general economic uplift experienced from new development, as well as the provision of affordable homes and homes specifically designed for older persons in the form of bungalows. All of these are considered to outweigh the initial impacts upon the landscape from the new development to the edge of the settlement that would be mitigated in the medium to long term by landscape planting. Officers therefore recommend that the application be approved subject to entering into the 106 agreement and with the conditions listed within the report. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Graham. We have no local members registered to speak, no parish council representatives, and no objectors all registered to speak, but we have one registered supporter, the applicant, who will have 5 minutes to speak. I understand he's going to be very brief and then answer questions. So Bob Bale, whenever you're ready, please.
Yeah, good morning, thank you. The applicant welcomes the officer recommendation to grant a renewal of outline planning permission. As you will have seen in the applicant's statement in the committee report, the original outline application granted by this committee in May 2019 was still valid at the time of the resubmission of this proposal, which we consider important. Other than updating of the reports and drawings that were required by officers, the application is identical to that previously granted approval. Progression of the original application was significantly disrupted by the working restrictions, financial and market uncertainty resulting from the COVID pandemic, which was a problem throughout the industry and resulted in an applicant running out of time, rather than any intention of the applicant to stall the delivery of the site. The application site, as the report confirms, is recognised within the County Durham Plan as a housing commitment. The applicants have continued to work, however, closely with officers on the resubmission in pre-application discussions on key material considerations such as planning principles, sustainability and integration of the scheme within the settlement. The land and buildings that make up Rodridge Cottage Farm are contiguous to the western edge of the settlement, and the proposal seeks to create a managed transition to open countryside beyond with a low density housing development. Full planning permission for the redevelopment of the farmstead for housing has recently been granted, and with this proposal would form an integrated approach to the inclusion of the area within the settlement. The material planning considerations have we consider been resolved. The scheme retains the support of key consultees subject to conditions, all of which the applicant has indicated are acceptable to them. In the nearly 2 years since the resubmission of this application, useful time has been expended with officers on developing an indicative layout for the site that's been beneficial in exploring opportunities to integrate the proposed housing with the edge of the settlement through the use of green corridors and landscape buffers that can add significant value to the final reserve matters scheme. We trust that members are able to support this renewal, as the basic planning considerations are, we consider, unchanged since the earlier grant of outline planning permission, and a renewal of the permission would enable the applicants to move quickly on to securing the inward investment in the area by progressing the reserve matters and delivery of the site and the housing it would provide in accordance with that permission. Thank you. As I've said, we are happy to take any questions you have on the application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bob. Does any member have a question? Patricia first and then Craig, please.
Good morning, County Councillor Patricia Jopling from Crook Division. Just a couple of minor things really. I didn't see, I might have missed it in the notes, whether you're doing any sort of solar panels on the roof, or because I think that with some of the planning applications that we get, it would be nice to see some sort of renewables, you know, on applications.
I think the answer I would have to give to that one is that as this is an outline application and doesn't include specific details of each design of the house types, that level of detail probably at the moment hasn't been explored. However, I'm confident that the applicant, as indeed any developer would be now, would be aware of the benefits of renewable energy and would incorporate them wherever possible.
Exactly.
Whether that be solar panels, or the thing is, it's such a rapidly developing technology, solar panels may not be the best solution at the time. And I think certainly whatever happens, any respected developer would look at exploring those options as part of any reserve matters scheme.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Craig, your question, please.
Craig Martin, councillor for North Lodge and Chelsea Street. This is an outline planning application, so it's probably going to dramatically change anyway when it comes down to the kind of final design and everything like that. But I'm just interested to ask the applicant why they opted for having effectively your bungalows are in kind of one cul-de-sac, and then the rest of the housing is in the other section of the sort of thing. And I ask this question because I'm much more sort of a preference for community cohesion, where we mix things up, and I just want to know why did you go for that kind of option preference?
I think as such, in principle, I would suggest there's probably no objection to pepper potting bungalows throughout the scheme. The answer I would give to that is that originally, the reason that they've been focused in a courtyard development is that we had aspirations that these bungalows would provide accommodation for the elderly people. And clearly, in that circumstance, to actually have them together as a community has significant merits, both in delivery of care, supervision, and in them forming their own community.
Thank you for that, John. John Higgins, please.
Just a question regarding the sub-basin. Have you got any plans to have this sub-basin fenced off?
Sorry, that mean you mean the standing water?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think whatever happens.
Sat in there, haven't they?
Mic on, please.
Yeah, I have. Is that any better? Yeah, I think inevitably what will happen is insurance demands would be such that we would have to provide some form of deterrent to allow accidental encroachment into the water area. I mean, it is quite a significant area, and I think it would be essential that such a scheme is put forward. And as I say, that again would be detailed as part of boundary treatment on the Reserve Matters scheme.
Thank you for that. Does anyone else have a question? Graham, do you want to come back with anything?
Yes, Chair. Just a couple of minor things. Just thinking about the renewables that was raised at the beginning. We've got to be aware that the policy planning policy only allows for 10%, building regulations have far exceeded that already, with the 30-odd% that comes in a couple of months' time in June. We've got future home standards in 2025. This gestation of this in terms of then requiring a reserve matters application, we're at least going to get those uprated beyond what the County Durham plan requires. So any new houses that the panel's probably looking to approve at this kind of outline stage today is going to start getting built at newer and newer standards, if that makes sense. So that was just my sort of point on this. So, Councillor Jopling.
I understand that. I do think it's something, though, that because you're talking about 2025, which literally is round the corner, that we should be trying to get developers to, because we're not seeing an awful lot of it, I'm afraid, at planning committees when things are getting, excuse me, you know, when these changes are becoming imminent. You see, I see 2025 as round the corner, literally. You know it is. And I do think it's worth, if a developer's willing to go that extra bit, that we pursue the renewable side of things. Thank you.
John, you had a quick question, did you?
Yeah, my question was for the officer, Mr. Chairman. I don't know whether it's appropriate now or just going back to the report. Basically, in some of the concerns what Hutton Henry Station Down Parish Council's raised, the first one basically, what I'd like to mention is the flooding, because where the entrance going into the new development is New Homes straight opposite Millbank, floods quite regular, and with me living only a few minutes from that part of Station Down, I quite often see that main road getting flooded. The other thing is, it does mention in the report where they're concerned regarding the knock-on effect for facilities, etc., i.e. GP surgeries. Now Station Down, for people who don't know, is basically joined on the hip to Wingate. And
John, is this not better in the debate rather than
right, I will do, Mr. Chairman.
asking the question?
Quite happy to leave it to then, thank you.
Yes. So if there's no further questions, we'll move into the debate. Anybody like to speak first? David Boyes.
Thanks, Chair. David Boyes, Eastern Division. I'm very familiar with this place, and as a councillor in East Durham, of everywhere in East Durham, this is probably the place that needs the most of regeneration. Used to have a couple of shops, it used to have a pub. Pub's gone, I think there's one, is that right, John? There's one pizza shop there, and that's about it. It's in huge need of regeneration. I think this would be a catalyst towards that regeneration. I share some of the concerns that John's got about flooding, because it does get regularly flooded, but I think the officer's report goes a long way to mitigating that. So I wholeheartedly support this application, and as I say, if anywhere in East Durham that needs regeneration, it's this place. So I think we should all get up behind it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. John, can I bring you in now, please?
Thank you. I mean, I echo what David's just said, because it's over 40 years before there was any development, since any really development in Station Down, and a number of premises is closed. Basically, as David just said, all you've got is a chapel, a fish shop, a printer's business at the bottom, which seems daft, but you go past the sign for Wingate, which is still actually Station Down. They have a solicitors, they have a tattooist, and they have a hairdressers. I do support the application, but I do have some concerns which I think should be mentioned today. Is that basically, the first question was, had there been any consultation with the local GP surgeries to see whether they could accommodate the increase in patients? Because at the moment in Wingate we've just had 166 houses built by Vant, and at the moment we're getting another 250 built by Bellways. And I know when I spoke to GP surgeries 2 years ago regarding those two developments, I was told that they were never ever consulted and they would struggle. Also the schools, at the moment we're having to get 2 extra classrooms built at the primary school, because we totally oversubscribed, and I think we'll still be oversubscribed with just the 411 properties in Wingate, never mind the extra 88. So I am concerned regarding the placements. The nursery schools totally oversubscribed, and I would just like to know, had any consultation been taken place with GP surgeries? I know in the report, Education Department say they've got no concerns because of the wider area, which means if you've got no places in the school at Wingate, the youngsters will have to be bussed out to other villages. But I do support the application. Thank you.
You want to come back on that now, please, Graham?
Sure, yes. Yes, Councillor Higgins. Couple of things, just thinking about the flooding. The scheme itself will need to obviously meet all the relevant surface water requirements that we have, and what the layout on the screen looks to try and do is demonstrate that the space within the layout to do that. Now, obviously flooding that's taking place outside of the site, you mentioned Millbank in terms of the public highway, that would have to be reviewed with the Highway Authority to try and tackle that, but obviously we don't want this development to make that worse. So that's is part of the detail that comes in. We'll look at that because we'll have conditions on for the drainage scheme for the site. In terms of the general practitioners, we obviously in dialogue with the NHS, and I think their latest iteration is the care board for the North East. They look at they're our conduit to the GP practices, and they look at any impacts on that. They didn't respond on the application, so we were unaware of what the situation is, but they were consulted. I checked that just yesterday. In terms of the education, the original application in 2019 did require a contribution to go towards those additional classrooms that you mentioned, but obviously the needs within Wingate were so much that those have had to be brought forward in between that. And when we consulted with the Education Authority within the council, they no longer needed any monies from this development, but were comfortable that those additional spaces created at the two primary schools would help accommodate those generated from this development. So we've made sure that it can be accommodated accordingly. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Graham. It's Craig next, please. Craig Martin.
Yeah, Chair. It looks like a really nice leafy green development. I just hope that as it moves from outline planning application and actual, it doesn't lose so much of its kind of greenness and the low density is what it is, because we quite often see this where we hear talk about low density building projects, but as soon as they get put into actual planning terms, they become a lot more denser. I share a lot of what Councillor Higgins says, so I hope, and I no doubt the planning team at the council will have robust Section 106 discussions with them to ensure that money is put aside for these sort of things. But I'm happy to support this. I don't know if Councillor Boyes was proposing this. If it was, then I'll very happy to second it, to second the officer's recommendations to accept this, Chair.
Thank you both. Maura McKeon, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for getting to me. This is a planning application we've already passed. It's just that because of COVID, the developer wasn't able to make the moves they wanted to, so it would be very difficult for us to turn it down even if we did want to. So I'm more than happy to just support and move swiftly to a vote, because I don't think there's going to be much dissension.
Thank you, Maura. I've always got time for you, you know that. Patricia, you wanted a word, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that I agree with David. This is an area that needs investment. And with a housing estate of that size, you will get probably a small people, local people coming in and opening up businesses to feed that community. Also, as far as the drainage is concerned, suds can be looks quite a sizable sud there, and they are very successful. Anyone that knows anything about them, they are very, very successful. They do what it says on the tin. So I'm quite happy to go with the recommendations.
Thank you. Do we have any further input? No, well, we'll go to the vote then, please. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the second application. It's land to the west and south of Jade Business Park with all matters reserved. Land to the Hawthorne Grid site, Merton. Outline planning application for a new 400 kilovolt electricity substation, a converter station and the laying out of replacement public open spaces. We have no registered speakers for this application, but I'll now ask Chris Shields to present his report, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, this application was previously presented to the Planning Committee in November last year with a resolution to approve, subject to a Section 39 legal agreement to deliver biodiversity net gain on land around the site. I'll just skip forward a couple of slides so you can see. Within the red line, there's quite a lot of areas that wouldn't be developed, i.e. the built areas are in the east over here and the northwest over here, and the rest of the land was largely for biodiversity net gain. However, as the applicant has not yet acquired the land identified for the biodiversity net gain, it's not been possible to issue the decision notice and the Section 39 agreement. To resolve this issue, it's now proposed to enter into a Section 106 agreement to deliver the Section 39 agreement at a later date once suitable land's been identified. And that's the same procedure that was entered into for the previous application that's just been determined. So it's a known procedure, it's just a different way of delivering that net gain on the site. So I'll just skip back. So I'll just have a quick run through of the application as we saw it last time, because nothing else has changed. So the proposed development forms part of the Scotland-England Green Link 1 scheme, or SEGL1. This is a project to provide electrical connection from Scotland to England via an undersea high voltage cable, which makes landfall at Torness in Scotland and at Seaham in England. The English onshore scheme includes the cable landfall at Seaham, 10 kilometres of new underground cabling, new substation, converter station at the former Hawthorne Colliery. Within the English onshore scheme, the elements requiring planning permission are the converter station, substation, and the proposed mitigation public open space. So if we look on this plan on the screen here, most of the red line area is actually the cable route running from Seaham in the north. So the point is nearly out of battery, I think. So all the way from down here to this point here is actually permitted development and isn't part of the application. So the application site is just in this area here, and that's what we're looking at today. So this is the site area in the red here. Now the Jade Business Park, that members might be aware of, is just to the north of the red line area there. You've got South Hetton to the southwest, Merton to the north, the A19 over to the east. This is the aerial photograph. You can just see phase 1 of Jade Business Park on the plan. This is the existing National Grid substation and Northern Power Grid substation next to it. The proposal would have the new substation in this area, and the new converter station will be down here, with the rest of it retained for public open space and potentially biodiversity net gain if it isn't secured elsewhere. So this is looking from the South Hetton area, looking east across towards the site. You can see an indication of it there. Dalton Park is beyond here, you can't see it on the plan. This is looking towards the west from the east. You can see the Dalton Park development in here. And this is Jade Phase 1, and the converter station would be in this area. This is the roundabout accessing the Jade Business Park. So this is some of the Phase 1 buildings here. There'll be a new spur created off the roundabout. Well, it's already there, but it'll be continued on. And the converter station will be in this part of the site on the left of the picture there. This is a block plan. Obviously, the development's in outline at the moment, so we get a detailed scheme later. These are the existing substations, which are part of the development. Proposed substation to go in here. New public open space in this area, and then the land for the new converter station in here. This is a very similar development built by National Grid, and this is at Blythe. It's for the same purpose, but this one connects to Norway rather than Scotland. In terms of consultee responses, we've had no objections from statutory or internal consultees, subject to conditions where appropriate. We have had 3 letters of objection from members of the public, raising issues of cumulative impact, loss of open space, noise, increase in traffic, impact to wildlife, and concern about the lack of dimensions of any of the proposed structures. And one of those 3 objections raised issues regarding need, alternative options, flood risk, statutory designations, and consultations of landowners and occupiers. But this was all in relation to the cable route, which was not part of this application. In summary, the proposed development would provide an essential part of the SEGL1 project, which is a major reinforcement to the national electricity transmission system between England and Scotland. The location of the proposed development at Hawthorne Pit has been carefully selected to provide the transmission benefits that arise from the proposed converter station and substation being located close to the point of connection to the national electricity transmission system, whilst balancing the environmental and financial implications of its delivery. The scale of the proposed development is necessary for it to operate effectively and has been kept to the minimum envelope that is needed to ensure the proposed development and the benefits that will result can be delivered. Whilst it is accepted the proposed development would have a small impact on the landscape, it is considered that the benefits of the development in terms of energy supply and security, biodiversity enhancement and job creation would outweigh that harm. The proposed development has generated limited public interest, with only 3 letters of objection having been received. Concerns expressed regarding the proposal have been taken into account and carefully balanced against the scheme's wider social, environmental and economic benefits. The proposed development is considered to broadly accord with the relevant policies of the County Durham Plan and relevant sections of the NPPF. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. We have no registered speakers for this, no one from the parish councils, no local members, and no objectors. It's now over to the committee to debate. Maura, you've got your hand up first, please.
Just for some information, I was wondering why the cables for these applications are considered as separate applications to the actual installation.
Yeah, it's not a separate application, it's just permitted development, so it doesn't need express planning permission.
Thank you. David Boyes.
Yeah, at the risk of repeating myself from the last time I was here in November, I think this is a no-brainer. It's great for East Durham, it's great for national energy security, and I'm not even sure why it's been brought back here. I still can't understand the reasons when it got the wholehearted support of this committee last time, but accept these things happen, so happy to support again.
Are you wanting to propose that, David? Cathy?
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Anyone else wish to join the debate? Wow. Okay, it's straight over to the vote then. We've got a proposer and a seconder. All those in favour? Unanimous again. Thank you ever so much. That concludes today's business. We can go home now and get on with some serious business.
If you want to induce, I'm doing it.